Thank you for joining us. It'll take just a few minutes to get everybody logged in. For those of you just getting on, we did ask if you want to go ahead and type in any questions you might have. We'll address them in a little bit. See, behind me is a nice poster from the book launch, from the first book launch. And I'll show you, if you haven't seen the book yet, this is, of course, it's backwards, but Ease the Pain in the Classroom.
It's not showing backwards, Sarah.
It's not on me. Because you're reading it the other way. Yeah. For me, it's reading backwards, but there you go. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Okay. Since I think we have probably most of the people on. So good afternoon. My name is Sarah Patno, and again, we wanted to address any questions that you have. Feel free to type them in at any point. And I'll read them shortly for answers, okay? Thank you for joining us today at this exciting launch. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce someone who has dedicated so much of her professional life to understanding human experience and making a positive impact on the world. Dr. Bethany Bilodeau, otherwise known as Dr. B, is an esteemed educator and author renowned for her groundbreaking work in creating supportive environments for students, teachers, and families. We're gathered to celebrate not only Dr. B's remarkable career, but also the release of her new book, Ease the Pain in the Classroom, which has quickly become a #1 bestseller on Amazon and Kindle, resonating deeply with educators around the world. With a passion for improving the classroom experience, Dr. B offers practical insights and strategies to alleviate the stress and challenges that teachers face, helping to foster more effective, compassionate learning spaces. Her expertise and dedication to education makes her a leading voice in the field. It's an honor to have Dr. B with us today, and I'm certain her insights will inspire and empower all of us. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Bethany Bilodeau as she shares her wisdom on how we can truly ease the pain in the classroom and create a positive, lasting change in education.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much, Sarah. That was so nice. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad to have you all here.
So, Bethany, why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote this book really because so many educators happen to grab me and say, how can I do this? Or how can I do that strategy? And according to the National Foundation on Education, they're saying now that 55% of educators are actually planning to leave the field of education before they had originally planned. And that's staggering. In addition to that, disruptions in the classroom have risen in the last 6 years by more than 50%. So due to that, there's really just this huge need to have simple yet effective strategies to make sure that we're retaining educators, but we're also getting students to a place where they can actually learn.
Wow, that's huge. So this was a huge endeavor. Who helped you with it?
It was definitely a team effort. Sarah was hugely instrumental. For those of you who don't know Sarah, I'm going to show you a little pic of like one of my visuals and then a pic of Sarah's visuals so that you can kind of see the difference. So here's one of mine. Sarah has an amazing ability at being able to transfer this chicken scratch into things like this. So she's been just instrumental at helping with those sorts of things. In addition to that, Chelsea Chevery has been extremely helpful. She could be a top-notch copy editor. She is just amazing at being able to do copy editing work. By trade, she is a mental health therapist, but she's just amazing at that, has amazing computer skills, and has helped tremendously with research. Emily Picard has has also helped a ton with research. We've been very fortunate that they've been able to contribute to this book. It's really filled with a lot of research that supports a lots of these theories. In addition to that, I want to thank all of our school districts, our parents, our educators, our beta testers. Without them and their stories and them being willing to share, we certainly could not have written this book. And of course, thank you to my family. So much appreciate it. I had three of my children at the live launch that we had, as well as my husband, and my mom is here today. So thank you to my family, of course, and a mountainous, huge thanks to the entire Core Methods and Behavior Bootcamp team. They are truly changing lives. And without them, this work would not be possible. So we are just so grateful to them and for the work that they continue to do.
Yeah, wow. Definitely a group effort, but you are the mastermind behind it all. Uh, so would you mind reading an excerpt for everyone this afternoon?
Sure, I would love to. So I'm going to read a little portion on my first classroom to start. How it began, my first classroom. When I was 22 years old, I had just passed the praxis and was certified to teach biology and earth science. I received an offer to teach freshmen and sophomores at a high school in Guam. Before starting my new position, I met with the vice principal of the school. He was an energetic man who talked with his hands. He had also taught biology and earth science. He gave me a tour of the buildings and took me to my classroom. As the tour concluded and he walked out of my classroom, he turned to me and said with a smile, "Don't put your back to the class. The last teacher was knifed." I looked at him in disbelief, wondering if he was serious. I was already anxious about being responsible for classes of students, but his comment terrified me. I started teaching the way I had been taught, reviewing the rules and expectations and laying out what would be learned. On the fifth day of class, I noticed that all of the lab equipment in my classroom was missing. The microscopes, test tubes, slides, Bunsen burners, everything. I was in over my head. I thought I had made a connection with these students, but I was clearly mistaken. My classes were chaotic. The students would talk constantly and they often moved around. After having to break up a fight one day, I was so scared that I debated if I'd go back the next day. In my efforts to follow their curriculum and help them achieve academically, I had missed the step of building a true connection. This would allow us to trust each other. To remedy my mistake, I implemented a program where students were welcome to come into my classroom before school and get tutoring or work on homework assignments, and I brought in breakfast. I had no idea about nutrition at that point, so I typically brought in cereal, but regardless of the nutritional value, the food did the trick. Most of the students who came into my early morning office hours didn't want to work on schoolwork, but it was required if they wanted to be there. So they would do their work and enjoy their breakfast, many of them relieved to be away from the throngs of other students in the courtyard waiting for classes to begin. They kept coming, and over time, the number of students grew. The program that I started gave the students who were concerned about their own safety a safe place to be. Soon after, I implemented a lunch program too, and I saw the class results improve even more. I talked to the students and learned that many had had challenging academic careers. They had challenges with learning and being attentive in typical classroom settings. I found that they understood the material better when we could relate the concepts to the nearby forest ecosystem or the tide pools that were near the school. One day, a student came to me and said, "Miss, I need you to call my dad because he will think I cheated on this test because I never got an A before." I laughed and called his father, who indeed thought it was a prank call. It took quite a bit of effort to prove that Jesus was indeed passing my class with an A and that he was in fact doing refrigerator-worthy work. I had to explain what that was as well. I would often take the classes out of the school to the forest or tide pools, which the students loved. I, however, did not realize that permission was needed for that sort of activity and was subsequently reprimanded for taking students off grounds. When I moved back to the United States in 1997, I worked for a brief time as a long-term sub in sixth grade. At that point, I had developed a clear understanding of the need to create safety first and decided to devote my primary focus to changing behavior. Attempting to keep up with curriculum and the changes in the behavior field was daunting. I found myself continually drawn to the students who were struggling, and I realized that I was able to provide techniques to help them be more successful in school. This was the area where I thought I could make a difference and help students who are struggling. The next excerpt I'm going to read is the top 10 tips to help a student feel safe in your presence. Feeling safe is a fundamental human need. Feeling safe within the school setting is important as it promotes healthy development, fosters a greater attachment to school, and provides the foundation needed for social, emotional, and academic learning to take place. When students feel safe, they are able to learn, when they are much less likely to experience behavioral problems. As research has shown that in schools with positive student-teacher relationships, the probability and frequency of subsequent behavioral problems is lower overall. Research has also shown that teachers' interactions with students directly affect students' behavioral, emotional engagement in the classroom, and that when teachers can assist students in feeling safe and interact with their students in a supportive and positive way, students are much more likely to be engaged and behave appropriately. There are many reasons why someone might not feel safe. I often walk into schools where I am asked to support students who I've never met. On a recent occasion, I watched an interaction with a student who was told that he could not eat his snack in the classroom due to him being unsafe. He was acting unsafe because he also did not feel safe. I could see that he did not feel safe by his body positioning, as he demonstrated rigid shoulders, chin and hands, and he also had his arms splayed and his fists clenched, which indicated that he would move to aggression quickly. When the staff member told this student that he could not have a snack in the classroom, he ran to the window and started striking it and kicking the heater below. I indicated to the staff member that I would take over, and in doing so, I moved into the stance of safety and moved my body closer to his to reduce the size of the hallway space. I also told him when he paused from kicking, that was when he de-escalated for a moment, that I was sorry to see him frustrated, and I asked him if I could get him his snack or a sweatshirt. He looked at me and said, "I just want to eat in my class." Then he turned and ran down the staircase. I followed him down the stairs, but did not chase. We then walked through the lower level of the building where he found the elevator and pushed the button. I moved to distraction at this point and stated that I had not been in this elevator before. When the doors opened, I said, "Whoa, this is a bit creepy," and giggled. We then stepped inside and I asked the student, "What do we press?" He looked at me and shrugged with a smile and said, "Maybe the star?" I said, "Okay, you try." He pressed the star button, which brought us upstairs. I then provided him with a recognition. "You knew the right one." The small space had further helped to make him feel safe, and as we moved out of the elevator, he was telling me about how hard it is for him at school and that he feels that no one understands him. I empathized with him while I walked him back to the Student Support Center. I then asked him if he was all set and if he needed me to stay longer. He responded, "I think I am okay." I told him where I would be in the building if he needed me and also for the benefit of the staff supporting him. This student was struggling with how to be safe because he didn't feel safe. A question that is important to ask is, why wouldn't someone feel safe? There are many reasons that this may occur, and without getting into the technical end of it, we can see that people don't feel safe when they have been in a state of crisis for a long period of time. This could be due to abuse, neglect, medical needs, overstimulation due to sensory exposures. This could also be toxins, lack of connection, mental health challenges, and many other reasons. So how can you make a student feel safe in your presence? Here are the top 10 ways how. So we've put it in the chat, this little visual. So the number one thing is called the stance of safety, which I do in every training that I teach. I teach people how to do this. It is not only good for when a student feels unsafe, but it's great if your loved one feels unsafe, somebody at Walmart feels unsafe, you're at the airport and someone's acting unsafe. All of these things can help this person to feel safe. So the most important thing is to have your feet about shoulder width apart and your hips pointed at the person that you're interacting with. You want to keep your hands between your shoulders and your hips, and you want to make your fingers visible. Okay, so don't put them in your pockets and don't hide them inside your hands and that sort of thing. Fingers visible, and the thumbs should be slightly lifted. The reason why we slightly lift the thumbs is because it non-verbally indicates confidence to people. So if the thumbs are hidden, people automatically feel that you can't keep them safe because it indicates to them that you're not confident in keeping yourself safe. So lifting those thumbs slightly so that they can be seen helps with that. In addition to this, we bring the shoulders up and back. We lift the head slightly. We tilt the head slightly to the left. And we keep the mouth slightly open. There's a couple of reasons we do this. One is that when my lips are together, I have these frown lines now. And because of that, it makes me not look as warm. So if my mouth is slightly opened, I look warmer. If my head is tilted to the left, this non-verbally tells someone that I am empathetic. If I tilt it to the right, it tells them that I'm intelligent. I don't need to look smart. I just need to feel my feels right now. Okay. So you tilt it to the left. So it makes you look empathetic. So you put those pieces together, and that will significantly help the person you're interacting with feel much safer. In addition to this, some other things that we could do would be potentially to dress in layers. I often wear scarves and layers of clothing so that I can take a piece off and put it on the student or help the student with it, or I'll have my backpack and I'll put it up against them to create more of a confined space. So with that also is shrinking the space. Oftentimes when the space is too big, the person's body movements or volume need to fill up the entire space, and that causes them to escalate more. Slow down movements and volume, obviously. This will help to decrease sensory stimuli. Build a connection with them. Whatever they happen to be interested in at that point, you want to try to engage with them about that. Do not repeat expectations. I know that a lot of people want to do this, that it says in a lot of behavior plan, state the expectation, wait 3 minutes, state the expectation. What this actually does is it undermines your authority. The more times you say the expectation and the person doesn't follow through with it, the more the person feels like this isn't really something that I have to do. So make sure that when you're stating the expectation, you know the person's going to follow through. In addition to this, you could also use caving. A lot of smaller, younger people love to go under tables and desks. This is because it makes them feel safer. With teenagers, oftentimes what we do is hoods, hats, or even them just sitting back and kind of crawling into their clothing can help them feel safer. In addition to this, using distraction, if you can delay an incident about 3 seconds, typically it won't occur. We already talked about reducing sensory stimuli in addition to that. So if you have questions about that, pop them in. We'll be happy to address those in a moment. The next section I'm going to read is on spotting the signs of aggression. Spot the signs of aggression instead of leaving it to chance. Daily, I walk into schools and sign into the visitor book. I look up at the ladies working in the office and ask, any place I'm needed? One replies, kindergarten, first grade hallway, Dr. B. I leave with my backpack still on and walk into the hallway. A student is hissing at the teacher with his hands raised and is striking her. A few signs that a student may be aggressive could be the inner parts of the eyes are pointed down and the eyelid actually cuts through the pupil. It could also be that the chin is jutted forward. You can sometimes see the white above the iris. There might be an arm splay, a chin jut. Sometimes you see some dimpling on that chin as well. Chest pop, in addition to that. The weight is on the forward part of the feet, on the balls of the feet. And the jawline, that muscle there is tensed. So my student, Chance, showed all of these signs with the exception of the dimpling on his chin. I moved quickly and quietly in between him and his teacher, and I say to her, "Thank you, I have this. I appreciate your help." She is visibly startled and relieved that help has arrived, and she goes into her classroom and closes the door. The, the blind on the back of the door is already closed. The student looks up at me and yells, "Back up!" And I say, "I'm so sorry. I'm Dr. B, and I'm here to keep you safe." I take one small step back. I'm using the stance of safety. The step back helps to balance the height between myself and the student. And I say, "I'm so sorry that you feel frustrated. Can we move to a safer spot so your friends won't see you upset?" He nods, breathing heavily, with his fist still raised. We move to the alcove of the hall, and I hand him my scarf. He sits down, and I indicate that he can use it to wrap himself. I can see he isn't as heightened, so I say, "I'm going to give you some privacy. Let me know if you need anything." And I turn away from him, but I angle my body so I can still see him and the hall. After a moment, he sits in the corner, puts a scarf around himself, and cries. I slip out of my backpack and put it against his legs to give him a more confined space. As his crying subsides, I ask him questions about his class, and he shares that it's very hard for him and he just gets angry. We then discuss a plan to go to another area of the building where he can start to do some work, then move with his class to lunch and to recess, then back to the classroom. He agrees to this idea, and I swing by his class and grab some of his assignments and let his teacher know that we will be back soon. We move through the plan, and I meet with the teacher during lunch. I describe what I did to regulate him, and she asks if we can create a space like that in her classroom. What a fabulous idea! We look at her furniture and use two file cabinets to create a cozy corner, and we put a beanbag and a blanket in that area. We then discuss how to present the space to the class. After lunch, she has the class meet on the rug where she introduces the idea of the cozy corner. For any of the students who feel they need a few minutes, Chance loves this spot and is able to stay in his classroom more than 95% of his day. At the end of the school year, he transitions into first grade, where he sees me one day and says, "I don't see you very much. I must be doing really good, Dr. B." And I respond with, "Amazing."
That's great. Thank you. So, there's quite a few questions in the chat, which is nice because we want to get the kids
Questions.
started.
Yay.
Yeah. So the first question is, do you have a training course offered as well?
We do, and it's at the www.thebehaviorbootcamp.com, and it is a course that takes you through a lot of these components.
Okay. And Betty actually put the link in there. Thank you, Betty.
Ready?
Yeah. Is there a way parents can access your help and support outside of the school, or is this only an in-school program?
That's a great question. Yes, we actually hold a free session every week. And oftentimes, before parents even start working with us through a contractual situation, we always recommend that they do a Zoom with us so that we can try to work through some of the challenges that they have beforehand. Oftentimes, just with some tweaking and some knowledge of some strategies and some nutrition things and some movement activities, we can give them enough information so that they potentially might not need our level of support. So, yes, absolutely. And we have tons of things on social media. We released a tip every week. And we're always, filming and creating more things to release that we feel that people are currently struggling with.
Okay. What age group is this book for?
This book addresses ages 3 to 22. So those are the edges of the populations that we actually work with. So in each of the strategies, we have different little stories, little vignettes about what age groups and that sort of thing and what strategies work for those different age groups and everything.
Okay. Do you have a favorite tool or strategy from the book that is especially effective?
I would probably say that I'm the water queen. I use water for just about everything. So water is a natural regulator, and Joey's laughing because it's one that I always talk about for sure. So water is such a natural regulator for all humans, whether you're listening to water sounds on your phone or you're turning on the tap water or whatever it may be. I mean, all of us, you've been around one of those, middle school kids or whatever at one point or another where they're like, "I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to take a shower. And they finally go in to take a shower and they come out and they're like, I showered. And you're like, no, you didn't. You still smell like a stinky foot. And they didn't shower. And you say, you got to get back in there. They come back out, still haven't showered. They finally get in there a few minutes later, and you hear all of a sudden, then they start singing, and you can hear they sound comfortable. And then they don't want to come out. And when they do come out, they're like, hey, everything's great. So it's one of those things that will just help to settle that nervous system, even for people who've had really amped nervous systems. They might have had medical challenges in the past and that sort of thing, and their nervous system is always in that state of hypervigilance. Water will help to balance it and regulate it and everything. So water is just a great tool, whether you're filling the dog water bowl or you're filling water bottles, whatever it may be. Water is a great tool.
Right. When working with a student that targets others, what is your favorite technique to use to draw their attention away from them?
Working with it, I usually use a visual distraction. So oftentimes I will stand in between the student that is targeting the student and someone else, and I will do something that will distract them. And usually it's something that's going to engage them. So I'm not going to stand there and say, no, you can't do this. This isn't the right time, so on and so forth, because then it's going to come through as a conflict, and they're going to want to have a conflict with me, and they're going to become agitated. And then someone else is going to be the target, probably me. And I'm not going to be able to get them back engaged with academics. So I usually try to block whatever their target is and then engage them in something else that can provide a distraction for a few moments so that we can then re-engage them in academics. Usually a higher preferred topic works best as long as it's not so highly preferred that they can't then transition off that topic. And that does happen too. So you want to make sure that you pick something that's somewhat engaging, but not so engaging that they can't transition back off.
And knowing you, I know with the little ones, the younger ones, you do silly
I
voices or
do. Yeah, I
they
am.
love that.
Yeah, those of you that know me, you know that I love to do impersonations and everything else. So I really try to make it as engaging as possible, whether that's, acting out, current things that they might be watching on TV, or whether it's I'm making up my own. I'm definitely known for, pretending that we're at the hair salon or whatever it might be to get them back over to their desk and something else just to make
That's
it
fun.
engaging. So, and we modulate the behavior based off of the population that we're working with. Well, obviously, for working with older students, we rein that in quite a bit, and layer on the funny stuff, just more sly and dry humor and those sorts of things. So.
Right. What are your top three regulation strategies?
I think the top one is probably trying to get the serotonin out of the gut. So in order to do that, you need pressure on the stomach. 80% of our serotonin is made in the stomach and not in the brain. And that's impacted by gut health. Absolutely. It's also impacted by stress and, environmental factors, but we want to get that serotonin pushed out of the stomach. So if I've got a student that's struggling to regulate and that sort of thing, then I'm going to walk by and probably drop stuff on the floor so that they bend down then to help me pick it up so that I can, one, thank them for being so helpful. And, I can engage with them for a moment so that we can have a connection, but they can also get that serotonin push by pushing it out of the gut. So that's probably my top one that I use most of the time. Another one is probably the shrinking of the space. So if they're feeling really agitated and they can't seem to get themselves back acclimated and regulated, then I'm going to make that space feel smaller. So whether I'm using my own body to shrink the space and make it feel smaller, or I'm using actual props from the environment, whether it's desks and chairs or my backpack or whatever it might be, I'm shrinking that space to make them feel safer. The other one is probably water. I use water as a regulator all the time. Those are my big ones that I tend to go to a lot of the time. If I don't have that, then I'll use other things in the environment. So it might be something there. This weekend I was at a dance recital, and I was working as a volunteer in the backstage. And one of the children, he kept doing this, and I was like, yeah. And I looked at him, and I looked at the mom, and I said, ear infections as a baby? She went, mm-hmm. And I said, has he had some medical issues too? And I was like, okay. And I brought him over and I did some compression with him on the side of the head and that sort of thing. And I said, yeah, he has a middle ear weakness that, he probably needs some strengthening. I'd never met this child before. But the auditory stimulation bothered him. A little while later, he was talking about all the noise from the building. And that's a big one too, is that, you can't filter that out from a sensory perspective for a lot of kiddos. So, providing those tools, whether it's compression or whether, and a lot of times they can do it to themselves. Like, I love games like 7 Up and Four Corners because you have to put your head down in order to do that. And it gives you some stimulation for the vagus nerve and everything and helps to regulate the whole nervous system when it does that.
Speaking of water, are most students, do you think, a little dehydrated and they don't know it? And
Auto
that's
dehydrated. Yeah. Definitely pushing the water all the time. Most kids nowadays in schools are very, very dehydrated. Dehydration presents a lot like ADHD, very similar symptoms a lot of the time. So, making sure that you're pushing the water because a lot of times you're going to see behavioral challenges from students that are dehydrated. Adults too. I mean, we see it as well with adults. We are extremely tired and hungry when we're dehydrated and oftentimes get headaches and things like that as well.
okay. What was your favorite part of writing this book?
I really enjoyed, that's a great question. I really hadn't thought a lot about that one. I really enjoyed the just the sitting down and getting to write each section of this and think through the different sections and that sort of thing. I spent a lot of time writing about my experience as a learner, which we cut most of it from the book. But I enjoyed the process of that. I didn't have a great learning experience. It wasn't terrible by any means, but I struggled as a learner. I had to work really hard in school. And I was a very anxious learner. I believed at one point that I had a hole in my stomach for months and months on end and thought that, everything was falling out the hole in my stomach because I used to make myself burp. So, and I would get, hyper focused on these different things that I thought was wrong. And it really distracted me from learning and learning was hard for me. So, from that perspective, that's part of the reason why I work in this field. And it's also why I think that I'm so empathetic to students and why I can constantly try to pull up empathy for them because I understand how challenging it is to be a learner. But it was fun for me to write that section, even though it didn't make it into the book. Um, I loved being able to write the separate little components on like what are the signs of aggression, how to work with that, what are the signs of disruption, how to manage that. I thought that was, what is the sign of an anxious learner? What are some strategies you can do? I really wanted this book to be a tool that people could pick up, if they're a teacher and they're struggling or a parent and they're struggling and they said, okay, my kid is looking like they're going to be aggressive. Where can I find that? Oh, there. Okay, I need to do that. And they could just pick up those strategies and use them independently and find them helpful, hopefully.
Well, and it says right on the bottom that it's the teacher's guide based on the behavior boot camp. So if you've taken the course, which is great, then this is so easy that you can just go right to a section to find some of those strategies. That's great. All right, the next question. Do you have any tools or strategies that can be used to help the students who tend to isolate or are shy or crave peer connection?
Yeah, I mean, the caving is huge for those students. They need to feel safe before they can take that risk. So the caving will help tremendously. If you've got a middle schooler or a high schooler, that's a kid you really want to ask for permission for them to be able to wear a hood or wear a hat for a period of time so that you can get them more regulated. The reason why is the hood and the hat help to stimulate that vagus nerve, so it makes them feel safe. So I know a lot of school policies, they don't want them to be allowed to do that. But for the anxious learner, that student is completely introverted. With that too, the more time that student spends in thought and internal events, the more likely they are to disengage even more and become even more introverted. So getting them to connect is really important using highly preferred topics to get them to connect, and then, connecting with you as a support provider or a teacher, and then connecting them with students that that they're going to feel safe with over time is really critical. And they need help with that facilitation. They're not kids who often can self-initiate, and they don't have the resiliency to be able to withstand challenges that come up. So they need a lot of help with that, and they need a lot of help processing information so that they don't view it from a negative perspective, because that will likely happen even if their perspective is very different from other people's perspective, as all of ours are.
Yeah. Okay. If you could write a companion workbook or next volume, what would it focus on?
It's going to focus on parents. I have actually written a companion workbook. I'm not sure if we're going to publish it, but we use it for our alternative education programs that we have. Myself and Emily Picard, who's also on this, have written that book as well. But we are writing Ease the Pain in the Home, A Guide to Safety and Regulation. I have already started that. That draft is well on its way, but we're looking at a release date in a few years, 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Let's see. Wow, we've got so many questions left. Do you find yourself changing or adjusting the regulation strategies depending on the age? Sorry, you kind
Yeah.
of already answered that one. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
every time I learn something new, I find that I'm adjusting it too. So I spend a lot of time in continuing education, and I'm adjusting and tweaking those tools, and our staff are doing the same, and the team really puts a lot of time into making sure that they are prepared and they have the skills needed to get things done. So
How can we help a student that seems sleepy most days?
this sounds like a student I might know.
Yep.
I think when they're coming in, you need to give them your own energy. So if they're coming in and they're immediately sitting down and going to rest, they have to borrow the energy from somebody else. You have to give them your energy. So, and you can't start way up here and be the obnoxious 90s fitness instructor that everybody's going to be able to do it. It'll be great. You need to actually be able to give them their energy at their level, and then pitch it up, pitch it up, pitch it up, pitch it up. Because if you start way too high, you're just an annoyance. And if you start only at their level or below, you're not going to make any gains with them. So you got to be slightly above and then ratchet it up as they move up with you. Okay. Energy balance is huge. Most students that like the teacher or like the person that they're engaged with will meet the energy of that person. So we want to make sure that they're at an energy level that is conducive for learning.
Yep. Okay. So we have two questions that basically are asking the same thing, but if the student doesn't like water, do you have any recommendations to make it more appealing to them?
Talking about drinking water.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if they
Well,
don't,
I
yeah,
see.
sliced fruit in it, sometimes making the ice cubes that have the fruit in it and that sort of thing. I'm not above using different sorts of healthy based like lemonades and iced tea mixes and stuff like that to just make sure that they're healthy, and they don't have any neurotoxins in them and that sort of thing. Whatever it takes, I've got to get the hydration, and it needs to be quality hydration.
Yes. Okay. You talk about distraction. How effective is that typically? How does it work? Work
So
well?
distraction works great. So, and the reason why is because this is a part of the brain, and not that I want to get super technical. Those of you that know me, you know that I'm the biggest geek in the world, but there's this area of the brain called the anterior cingulate gyrus. So when you ask someone to do something, that part of the brain gets like stuck. Like it's like the oppositional defiance part. So it's the part where you're like, okay, we're gonna do this, and they're like, no, I don't want to. And unfortunately, that part of the brain doesn't allow that person to move. But if you provide a distraction or you give the person 30 to 45 seconds, that allows whatever request you have made to settle into the subconscious so that they can actually look at that and say, is this something that I want? Do I want to do this? And make a qualified choice instead of just reacting with a no. So the distraction really serves that purpose. It also allows you to reconnect with that person. When you're providing a distraction, oftentimes it's an opportunity to reconnect.
Okay. So Bethany, do you want to share anything from the launch that was held on April 4th?
Sure. We were super fortunate. We had a huge showing at the live launch. About 80 people came out. It was really standing room only. It was a wonderful event held at a fantastic place. We were really, really lucky that we had such a wonderful showing and everything. But I would love to show some pictures of that. It was a great event. And we were really fortunate that we had so many people were able to make it. And it was just really such a wonderful, fun event. So we
It was
had,
fun, yeah.
it was super fun. So and that's the back of the book.
Yeah.
That was a great event. We had a really fun night and some great music and just a fun, super fun evening.
Yeah, it was. All right. So if there's no other questions, let's see, let me just scroll down. I see that we had somebody join just a few minutes ago. Welcome, Megan. Do you have any questions, Megan? I know you missed part of the reading, but if you have a question, you're more than welcome to type it in for you. And I'll get back to that if you do. Um, so a few people entered in the chat some ways to order the book if you're interested. Um, Chelsea put one in to purchase a copy on Amazon. There's a link there, but you can just go to Amazon and type in Dr. Bethany Bilodeau or the book title, which is, of course, Ease the Pain in the Classroom. You can get it that way. You can also purchase a copy that Bethany will autograph for you, and that's on the Stripe link that she put there. And there's also a QR code, I think, on the last slide. Bethany's going to put on. Yep, there's a QR code right there too, if you wanted to go ahead and order that way. Let's see. Oh, so you can get it digitally. If you want to download the book, you can get that on the www.thebehaviorbootcamp.com website. There's a QR code for that, or you can also get it on Amazon. So let's see. Okay, Megan's all good. She doesn't have any questions. Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you for putting that, Chelsea. She also put it in the link there in the chat. I think that's it for now.
Want to say thank you so much to everybody for jumping on. It was so good to see you all. I'm just thrilled that you were able to be here and everything. Some of your faces I haven't seen in quite a while, and I miss you so much, Claudia, Kim, and everyone, Delvine. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and we hope to see you all soon. Sarah, anything you want to add?
Oh, well, I just think I'm glad that you wrote the book because I know so many people who have benefited from your knowledge. And I know you're always taking classes and you're always studying, a variety of topics that were like, well, what does that have to do with it? But you put it together in a way that's really helpful for so many people. So I'm proud to be working for you
Thank
because
you. I
yeah,
appreciate that
because
so much.
I totally know what you can do and strategies and all that. So. All right. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a great day. I appreciate it.